Hello, in this lesson I want you to identify and use special pairs of angles, and I want you to identify perpendicular lines. The vocabulary come across are adjacent angles, linear pair, vertical angles, complementary angles, perpendicular, and supplementary angles. Now if we take a look at adjacent angles, adjacent means next to. So when you're sitting adjacent to somebody, you're next to. So two angles are adjacent if they're next to each other. That is, they have to have the same vertex and they have to share a side. Now, if they don't, if one is inside the other, like angle 3 and angle ABC, they're not adjacent. And obviously, if they don't share the same vertex, they're not adjacent. A linear pair is a special case of adjacent angles where your two sides that aren't the same, they form a line. So angle 1 and angle 2 are a linear pair. Vertical angles are not adjacent because they share a vertex, but they don't share a side. Vertical angles occur when they're opposite. So the actual correct name are vertically opposite angles. So if I take a look here, angle 1 and angle 2 are vertical angles. Angle 3 and angle 4 are vertical angles because their opposite sides form a straight line. Both pairs of opposite sides form a straight line. Now let's apply that on example 1. I want to find two angles that form a linear pair. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to trace one of my angles. I'm going to start with P. I'm going to go PIQ. There is one angle. Now what I want to do is I'm going to make it so one pair forms a line. So I'm going to continue P. I'm going to draw P through S. So in other words, my pair of linear pairs would be angle PIQ and angle QIS. Obviously, there's more than one correct answer here, but I just happen to choose that one. Now, let's continue on. Let's do two acute vertical angles. I'm going to start with PIQ then. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do exactly what I just got done. I'm going to extend both sides of my line. So we have two lines, and then the two lines that are opposite each other, the two angles opposite each other, are my vertical angles. So I'm going to say angle PIQ again. But this one, they want one opposite would be angle TIS. And there you have it. Now, vertical angles, they're equal. And of course, you should be able to see that. It should make sense they're going to be equal because I know a linear pair that forms a straight line. So I know these two angles add to 180. Well, angle CBE and angle EDF, they're a linear pair. So these two angles add to 180. We're adding the same thing to both sides, so that means your two vertical angles are congruent. Complementary angles are a pair of angles that add to 90 degrees. They could be adjacent, but they don't have to be, as long as they add to 90. And there's two of them. You can't have complementary with 3 or 4. It's just two angles that add to 90. Supplementary angles are two angles that add to 180. So a linear pair are supplementary, but they don't have to be adjacent as long as they add to 180. It's a pretty basic thing between these two. However, sometimes you get confused. I always remember supplementary goes with straight line. So supplementary goes to 180 and the other one adds to 90. And that's, we just got done saying, linear pair have to be 180. Now in example 3, this is just an algebra problem dressed in geometry. It says find the measure of two supplementary angles. So when we're told supplementary angles, the first thing we should in our mind is we know they sum to 180. If the measure of one angle is 6 less than 5 times the measure of the other angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my algebra. I'm going to let my let statements. I have two angles because I know it's supplementary. So I'm going to let the measure of angle 1 stand for something, and the measure of angle 2 stand for something. So if one of the measures is 6 less than 5 times the other, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the first one x. The other one is 6 less, so I'm going to subtract 6 from that, and then it's 5 times the other angle. Since we're told these angles are supplementary, we know the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 must equal to 180. Now, the measure of angle 1 is x. The measure of angle 2 is 5x minus 6. That equals 180. Now let's just solve, let's do the algebra. X plus 5x is 6x minus 6 equals 180. Now we'll add 6 to both sides. 6x equals 186. So I'll divide both sides by 6. So x is 31. So I know my first angle is 31 degrees. And it says find the measure of 2. So I want to find the measure of the other one. Now, you can find the measure of angle 2 by doing one of two things. I can take 5 times 31 minus 6. Or I know my two angles add to 180. So I can take 180 minus 31. And I know this second angle is 149 degrees. So there are my two answers. Either way is correct of how you do that.